I was infantry in the Marine Corps.
Right.
So when I joined the National Guard, I was awarded the infantry, the 11 Bravo MOS, and then 2 years later, about 2 years after I came out of the National Guard, I went to a cavalry unit, was reclassed, had to go to scout training, and became reclassed as a classified Cav Scout. And anyway, it's a bigger division. There's a bigger division between the cavalry and the infantry than there is probably about any other. Right. And so we say the infantry might be the queen of the battle, but we're the ones that keep that thing safe.
You're right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you interview Jackson.
Okay, so I'll get at my, when in school and have your little notes during class, when you didn't study for a test.
Right.
Like those little cheat sheets. Okay, so why did you join the Army?
Why did I join the Army?
Yeah.
Well, why did I join the Army or the Marines?
Yeah, the Marines.
Okay, because I was 18, I was just graduating high school.
So let's start with the beginning of your story, and then let's go from the beginning to the end. So it's the structure.
All right. It was 1978, and I was graduating high school, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And so I went, graduated in June, I guess, and I was down in Parris Island, South Carolina, which is the Marine Corps boot camp.
How was it?
Marine Corps, I actually didn't mind it very much. It was very hard, and it's down in South Carolina, so it's very humid, very hot, like the weather we've been having recently. And it was in July, August, September, and October. So it was the worst part of the summer. But I didn't mind the boot camp that much.
What did you do in boot camp?
Boot camp, well, it's just your basic training for the Marine Corps.
Can you explain that?
You learn how you get instilled military bearing into you. You learn how just the basics, how to march. It's a lot of basic stuff, but you're just indoctrinated into the military because it's a completely different lifestyle than civilian life.
So you do a lot of push-ups, right?
Oh yeah, and if depending on your drill instructor, your DI, how much you mess up, what they say, drop you, which means they make you get down and do push-ups or whatever. So you do a lot of exercise, but you're a young guy, when you're 18 years old, you can go out there and run all day and do exercise all day long and not even lose your breath. So.
Okay, so during boot camp, what was the hardest thing in boot camp?
I remember they told me that you're going to get culture shock when you go, and you're going to be homesick. And I really didn't experience either one of those. I was smart enough to take it day by day. And I knew that if you think about it in totality, that it's so hard, how am I going to get through this? And once you start thinking like that, I would think, there are so many people that have done this before me that, that I'm probably better than them, and, I'm not going to think about quitting. They made it, I can make it. And that only happened a couple of times there. And I never really got any culture shock, or I didn't get homesick. So that's why boot camp for me wasn't that hard. It's more psychologically hard than it is physical hard.
Really?
Boot camp is.
They yell at you?
Definitely Marine Corps boot camp.
They yell at you, right?
I don't know how much you know about it.
Not that much.
The Marine Corps boot camp is the hardest initial training of any of the 5 services.
Okay.
It's known for being the hardest and the roughest. And a lot of guys, and not just because of the physical stuff, but because of the psychological stuff.
They yell at you.
They try to mess with your head more so than any of the other academies. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah.
That is how when I went to boot camp, it was spot on.
Seriously?
Yes. Yeah, it was exactly right.
And the drill sergeant would curse at you and stuff.
Oh, curse, yeah, push, punch, hit, slap you. We were in a thing, if you want to get technical about it, getting into minutia. We were in, I was in 3rd Battalion.
Okay.
And there's 3 battalions, 3 recruit battalions out of Paris Island, Marine Corps boot camp. First, second, and third. I was in third, and third was kind of off in the boonies. And they say they put big guys and guys they think are going to be trouble out there, and the drill instructors are a lot more mean and hard. And I was in 3rd Battalion. And I mean, I had just a couple incidents with my drill instructors where, you know, they were mad at me, yelled at me, but not much. And
well, you weren't allowed to laugh, right?
oh no, you had to keep straight face. You couldn't look him in the eye. You couldn't look him in the eye. You had to keep straight face. And you better answer correct, you know, whatever question you're going to answer. And obviously they ask you questions that there is no right answer. So they can just keep on at you. Maybe the worst thing that happened to me there is we had just eaten chow. And we're out on the parade deck outside. And it was a Black Flag Day. A Black Flag Day is, they run the black flag up because it's so hot. It's like over 105 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So you're not supposed to be training. You're not supposed to be physically training outside. But back in 3rd Battalion, they did anyway. Didn't matter what color the flag was. And I always had to do push-ups for something. I don't remember what it was. And the blacktop on the parade deck, and it was so hot, it was burning my hands. And I had just eaten, and he was pushing me to exhaustion, way beyond exhaustion, and I threw up. So then he made me eat it. So what's wrong with my Marine Corps chow? You better eat that Marine Corps chow. So I had to eat it and started picking pieces up and start eating them. And you know, they say, what's wrong with it? Why'd you throw it up? Is it not good enough for you? No, sir, it's good enough for the private, sir. And then, well, then if it's good enough, then it's good enough to go in again and made me eat more. Other than that, and I didn't even think that was that bad. You know, I think I saw a documentary with Arlie Emery. He was the drill instructor in Full Metal Jacket, and he was a real Marine Corps drill instructor. And it was I think it was a documentary about initial training in the military and how the kind of Marine Corps. They went into how the Marine Corps does it, and he said that a drill instructor has to be part stand-up comedian and part just badass ass kicker. And it's true, because so many of the things they do there, actually, if you see it on video and stuff, it looks bad, but it actually lightens the atmosphere. It's funny. They're doing funny things.
So then the privates are more like encouraged to do stuff, right? Or something like that. It's like your.
But they're encouraged to stay in line. They better stay in line. They better not act out.
It's like your personal trainer, right?
No, because they don't want you to be an individual. They want you to be part of the group.
Yeah, I know, but
you can't stand out as different from being part of the group.
Yeah.
You know, maybe people grow up thinking they're special or whatever, and then if you go there, you're going to find that's in great contrast than how they want you to believe about being part of it.
That's why everyone has their head shaved.
Everybody wears the same uniform, has head shaved, uses the same language. Yeah, it's all military uniform, and it just instills in you a great amount of military bearing. And then when I got out of boot camp, I was in the infantry.
In which battalion were you, or which?
I was in Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines at Camp Lejeune. And I was in that for about 2 years. And then I got put on embassy duty.
What's that?
Embassy duty, you ever see the embassies? There are Marines that guard the embassies.
And
I was
where
on
were you?
that. My first post actually right out of school was Havana, Cuba. I was in Havana, Cuba for 13 months.
How was that?
It was different. There were, I know you're too young to remember. There's a thing called Mariel Boat Lift. That's when it was 1980, and it's when Castro basically told people in Cuba, all right, if you want to leave, you're allowed to leave. So Mariel was a harbor outside of Havana, and people went there, and they came to the United States in great groups. You ever see the movie with Al Pacino? What is it called? He's a drug dealer. What is the name of that movie?
Scarface.
Scarface, right?
I think
exactly.
so.
Yeah. they start the movie with that. That's how he came to America on the Mariel Boatway. When they show the movie with a lot of Cubans coming to the U.S. and then being put in camps, that was the Mariel Boatway. But anyway, I was on the other side. I was in Havana while that was going on, and so when Castro said he opened it up and said let them go if they want, a whole bunch of people the next day just came to. It was a U.S. interest section under the Swiss embassy. We did because we did not have diplomatic relations with Cuba, but we have an interest section, and here they have an interest section also under the Swiss embassy. So we have like indirect diplomatic relations. We have diplomats there in the country, but there's no ambassador. There's a director of the mission, which is the exact same thing as an ambassador. He makes the same decisions. But it's just recently, within the past year or two, that we opened up diplomatic relations with Havana.
Obama did that.
Right. And he reopened the embassy. Now, what it was, the embassy was closed in 1960, I believe. And when we opened up the diplomatic mission, that was in like 3 years before I got there, in 1977. They gave us the same old building, the same embassy building. And when I got there, it was right when this happened. They had demonstrations, and they had a thing called Que se vaya march, let them leave.
Yeah.
If you want to go, get out, basically.
How many left?
And they had millions of Cubans. It was actually millions of Cubans walked by demonstrating in the embassy.
A million.
But, right, and that was a few days before that. Like I said, hundreds came to the mission to get visas to go to the United States because they wanted to get an actual permission before they just left in Mariel.
Yeah.
And then what they did was the Cubans, Castro regime, sent a bunch of thugs, police in regular clothes, with clubs and everything, and was beating the people in the crowd. And what they did, they took a break, they broke in, because the whole front of the old embassy building, which is now the new embassy building, is all glass, big pane glass. They took it and they broke the pane glass and they started running in. Now, we thought that they were going to try to take over the embassy. We didn't know what was going on with the Marines inside. So we were locked and loaded on them. We were about to start shooting them. And the mission, the post security officer, or the regional RSO, regional security officer, which is a State Department person that basically kind of the Marine guards fall under him. He came running down because he was watching what was going on from another floor. He came running down. He said, "No, don't fire. Put your weapons down. They're getting away from people beating them up." So anyway, they weren't allowed to leave. They couldn't leave. The Cubans wouldn't let them leave the compound.
Well,
so they lived. There was about 150 of them, maybe, that lived at the lobby area of the intersection for like a good 7 or 8 months.
Wow.
And because they had them there, we had a hotel room. Because when you go into a country, a Marine detachment in any country, the State Department provides everything for them. And they provide a Marine house. Say there's like a 10-man detachment for that country. The State Department goes out and they find a 10-bedroom house and they rent it, and that's where the Marines live. They were in the process of doing that. It took them a long time to find one. So they had us in the Chapacana, the Riviera Hotel, which was about a mile down the Malecon. The Malecon is, if you ever see, they show Cuba and they show like a waterfront, the wall, and the sidewalk. Yeah. That's the Malecon. And it literally means boardwalk, kind of. That's our translation for it. And so it was about a mile down the Malecon, but that was too far away with all these people at the embassy. So we actually moved into that building. So I lived in that building for about 11 months.
Okay, and what did you do there? What
we just guarded it. We had the sit post down in the lobby. And
was that boring?
Huh? Was
that boring?
Well, any kind of guard work, I guess, is boring. After a while, it's monotonous. And when something like that, and there's a lot of things going on, potential of something bad to happen, you got to make sure you stay alert.
Did anything bad happen during that time?
No, Not really. End of my 13 months, there was the diplomatic stuff that was going on at the time. But no, other than when I first got there with the riot.
Oh yeah.
And
That was
and then
close.
the marches, the anti-American marches. Other than that, no, it was pretty nice. I learned Spanish there.
Really?
Actually, being in the lobby post, they call it post 1. Every embassy has a post 1, and that's the main post where the Marine Guard and the lobby works. And there's other posts throughout, depending on how big the embassy is. There's other posts throughout it also. But being down there in the lobby with all these refugees, and a couple of them spoke English, and that's how I learned to speak Spanish. They taught me basically, just working 12 hours a day on a post, nothing else to do, but
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So you don't really have to go to college and learn Spanish. You just
well, the thing was, it was right before I was about to rotate out to go to my next post. Your first post is usually your hardship post. They call it the hardship post, which is, usually it's like a Soviet bloc country or something that, or it's just a bad place to live.
like Afghanistan or something.
Right. Anything that's not, everything behind the Iron Curtain was hardship because you're restricted.
Where was the Iron Curtain again?
Iron Curtain was the difference between communism and capitalism. It's an Iron Curtain. I think Winston Churchill came up with the phrase. Went to a cavalry unit, was reclassed, had to go to scout training, and became reclassed as a classified Cap Scout. And anyway, it's a bigger division. Turn this down. There's a bigger division between the cavalry and the infantry than there is probably about any other. Right. And so we say the infantry might be the queen of the battle, but we're the ones that keep that safe.
You're right.
Yeah.
All right, well, your interview, Jackson.
Okay. So I'll have my, when in school and have your little notes during class. Like during when you don't know when you didn't study for a test.
Right.
Like those little cheat sheets. Okay, so why did you join the army?
Why did I join the Army?
Yeah.
Well, why did I join the Army or the Marines?
Yeah, the Marines.
Okay, because I was 18, I was just graduating high school. And I
So
joined
let's
the
start with
Marines.
the beginning of your story, and then let's go from the beginning to the end. So
Okay.
it's like the structure.
All right. It was 1978, and I was graduating high school, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And so I went, graduated in June, I guess, and I was down in Parris Island, South Carolina, which is the Marine Corps boot camp.
How was it?
Marine Corps, I actually didn't mind it very much. It was very hard, and it's down in South Carolina, so it was very humid, very hot, climate like the weather we've been having recently. And it was in July, August, September, and October. So it was the worst part of the summer. But I didn't mind the boot camp that much.
What did you do in boot camp?
Boot camp, well, it's just your basic training for the Marine Corps.
Can you explain that?
You learn how, you get instilled military bearing into you. You learn how, just the basics, how to march. Yeah, it's a lot of basic stuff, but you're just indoctrinated into the military because it's a completely different lifestyle than civilian life.
So you do a lot of push-ups, right?
Oh yeah, and if depending on your drill instructor, your DI, how much you mess up, what they say, drop you, which means they make you get down and do push-ups or whatever. So yeah, you do a lot of exercise, but you're a young guy, when you're 18 years old, you can go out there and run all day and do exercise all day long and not even lose your breath. So
Okay, so during boot camp, what was the hardest thing in boot camp?
I remember they told me that you're going to get culture shock when you go, and you're going to be homesick. And I really didn't experience either one of those. I was smart enough to take it day by day. And I knew that if you think about it in totality, that it's so hard, how am I going to get through this? And once you start thinking like that, I would think, there are so many people that have done this before me. that, that I'm probably better than them, and, I'm not going to think about quitting. They made it, I can make it. And that only happened a couple of times there. And I never really got any culture shock, or I didn't get homesick. So that's why boot camp for me wasn't that hard. It's more psychologically hard than it is physical hard.
Really?
Boot camp is.
They yell at you?
Definitely Marine Corps boot camp.
They yell at you, right?
I don't know how much you know about it.
Not that much. Like
the Marine Corps boot camp is the hardest initial training of any of the 5 services.
Okay.
It's known for being the hardest and the roughest. And a lot of guys, and not just because of the physical stuff, but because of the psychological stuff.
They yell at you and
They
stuff.
try to mess with your head more so than any of the other academies. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah.
That is how when I went to boot camp, it was spot on.
Seriously?
Yes, yeah, it was exactly right.
And the drill sergeant would curse at you and stuff.
Oh, curse, yeah, push,
Really?
punch, hit, slap you. We were in a thing, if you want to get technical about it, get into minutia. We were in, I was in 3rd Battalion,
Okay.
and there's 3 battalions, 3 recruit battalions out of Paris Island, Marine Corps boot camp. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I was in 3rd, and 3rd was kind of off in the boonies. And they say they put big guys and guys they think are going to be trouble out there, and the drill instructors are a lot more mean and hard. And I was in 3rd Battalion, and I had there's a couple incidents with my drill instructors where they were mad at me, yelled at me, but not much. And
Well, you weren't allowed to laugh, right?
oh no, you had to keep straight face. You couldn't look him in the eye. You couldn't look him in the eye.
Yeah.
And keep straight face. And you better answer correct, whatever question you're going to answer. And then, obviously, they ask you questions that there is no right answer. So they can just keep on at you. Maybe the worst thing that happened to me there is we had just eaten chow, and we're out on the parade deck outside. And it was a Black Flag Day. A Black Flag Day is, they run the Black Flag up because it's so hot. It's like over 105 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So you're not supposed to be training. Not supposed to be physically training outside. But back in 3rd Battalion, they did anyway. Didn't matter what color the flag was. And I had to do push-ups for something. I don't remember what it was. And the black top on the parade deck, and it was so hot, it was burning my hands. And I had just eaten, and he was pushing me to exhaustion, way beyond exhaustion, and I threw up. So then he made me eat. So what's wrong with my Marine Corps chow? You better eat that Marine Corps chow. So I had to eat it and started picking pieces up and start eating them. And it says, they say, what's wrong with it? Why'd you throw it up? Is it not good enough for you? No, sir, it's good enough for the private, sir. And then, well, then if it's good enough, then it's good enough to go in again and made me eat more. Other than that, and I didn't even think that was that bad. I think I saw a documentary with Arlie Emery. He was the drill instructor in Full Metal Jacket, and he was a real Marine Corps drill instructor. And I think it was a documentary about initial training in the military and how the kind of Marine Corps. They went into how the Marine Corps does it, and he said that a drill instructor has to be part stand-up comedian and part just badass ass kicker. And it's true, because so many of the things they do there, actually, if you see it on video and stuff, it looks bad, but it actually lightens the atmosphere. It's funny. They're doing funny things.
So then the privates are more like encouraged to do stuff, right? Or something like that. It's like your
But they're encouraged to stay in line. They better stay in line. They better not act out.
It's like your personal trainer, right?
Well, no, because they don't want you to be an individual. They want you to be part of the group.
Yeah, I know, but
you can't stand out as different from being part of the group.
Yeah.
Maybe people grow up thinking they're special or whatever, and then if you go there, you're going to find that's in great contrast than how they want you to believe about being part of it.
That's why everyone has their head shaved.
Everybody wears the same uniform, has head shaved, uses the same language. Yeah, it's all military uniform, and it just instills in you a great amount of military bearing. And then when I got out of boot camp, I was in the infantry.
In which battalion were you, or which?
I was in Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines at Camp Lejeune. And I was in that for about 2 years. And then I got put on embassy.
What's that?
Embassy duty, you ever see the embassies? There are Marines that guard the embassies.
And
I
where
was
were
on
you?
that. And my first post actually right out of school was Havana, Cuba. I was in Havana, Cuba for 13 months.
How was that?
It was different. It was different. There were, and I know you're too young to remember, but there's a thing called Mariel Boat Lift. That's when, it was 1980. And it's when Castro basically told people in Cuba, all right, if you want to leave, you're allowed to leave. So Mariel was a harbor outside of Havana. And people went there and they came to the United States in great groups. You ever see the movie, with Al Pacino, what is it called? He's a drug dealer.
Yeah.
What is the name of that movie? Scarface, right?
I think so.
Exactly. Yeah. They start the movie with that. That's how he came to America on the Mariel Boat. When they show the movie with a lot of Cubans coming to the U.S. and then being put in camps, that was the Mariel Boat. But anyway, I was on the other side. I was in Havana while that was going on. And so when Castro said he opened it up and said, let them go if they want, a whole bunch of people the next day just came to, it was a U.S. interest section under the Swiss embassy. We did, because we did not have diplomatic relations with Cuba, but we have an interest section. And here they have an interest section also under the Swiss embassy. So we have like indirect diplomatic relations. We have diplomats there in the country, but there's no ambassador. There's a director of the mission, which is the exact same thing as an ambassador. He makes the same decisions. But, it's just recently, within the past year or two, that we opened up diplomatic relations with Havana.
Obama did that.
Right. And he reopened the embassy. Now, what it was, the embassy was closed in 1960, I believe. And when we opened up the diplomatic mission, that was in like 3 years before I got there, in 1977. They gave us the same old building, the same embassy building. And when I got there, it was right when this happened. They had demonstrations, and they had a thing called Que se vaya march, let them leave.
Yeah.
If you want to go, get out, basically.
How many left?
And they had millions of Cubans. It was actually millions of Cubans walked by demonstrating in the embassy.
A million.
But right, and that was a few days before that. Like I said, hundreds came to the mission to get visas to go to the United States, because they wanted to get an actual permission before they just left in Mariel. And then what they did was the Cubans, Castro regime, sent a bunch of thugs, police in regular clothes, with clubs and everything, and was beating the people in the crowd. And what they did, they took a break, they broke in, because the whole front of the old embassy building, which is now the new embassy building, is all glass, big pane glass. They took it and they broke the pane glass and they started running in. Now, we thought that they were gonna try to take over the embassy. We didn't know what was going on with Marines inside. So we were locked and loaded on them. We were about to start shooting them. And the mission, the post security officer, or the regional RSO, regional security officer, which is a State Department person that basically kind of the Marine guards fall under him. He came running down because he was watching what was going on from another floor. He came running down. He said, "No, don't fire. Put your weapons down. They're getting away from people beating them up." So anyway, they weren't allowed to leave. They couldn't leave. The Cubans wouldn't let them leave the compound.
Well, how many?
So they lived. There was about 150 of them, maybe, that lived at the lobby area of the intersection for like a good 7 or 8 months.
Wow.
And because they had them there, we had hotel rooms, because when you go into a country, a Marine detachment in any country, the State Department provides everything for them. and they provide a Marine house. Say there's like a 10-man detachment for that country. The State Department goes out and they find a 10-bedroom house and they rent it, and that's where the Marines live. They're in the process of doing that. It took them a long time to find one, so they had us in the Tropicana, the Riviera Hotel, which was about a mile down the Malecon. The Malecon is, if you ever see, they show Cuba and they show like a waterfront with a wall and a sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's the Malecon. And typically it literally means boardwalk, kind of. That's our translation for it. And so it was about a mile down the Malecon, but that was too far away with all these people at the embassy. So we actually moved into that building. So I lived in that building for about 11 months.
Okay, and what did you do there? What
We just guarded it. We had the sit post down in the lobby. And
was that boring?
Huh?
Was that boring?
Well, any kind of guard work, I guess, is boring. You know, after a while, it's monotonous. And you know, when it's something like that, and there's a lot of things going on, the potential of something bad to happen, you got to make sure you stay alert.
Did anything bad happen during that time?
No, not really. End of my 13 months, there was the diplomatic stuff that was going on at the time. But no, other than when I first got there with the riot.
Oh yeah.
And then the marches, the anti-American marches. Other than that, no, it was pretty nice. I learned Spanish there.
Really?
Actually, being in the lobby post, they call it Post 1. Every embassy has a Post 1, and that's the main post where the Marine Guard and the lobby works. And there's other posts throughout, depending on how big the embassy is. There's other posts throughout it also. But being down there in the lobby with all these refugees, and a couple of them spoke English, and that's how I learned to speak Spanish. They taught me basically, just working 12 hours a day on a post, nothing else to do, but
yeah. So you don't really have to go to college and learn Spanish. You just
well, the thing was, it was right before I was about to rotate out to go to my next post. Your first post is usually your hardship post. They call it the hardship post. Which is, usually it's like a Soviet bloc country or something that, or it's just a bad place to live.
Like Afghanistan or something.
Right, anything that's not, everything behind the Iron Curtain was hardship. Because you're restricted.
Where was the Iron Curtain again?
Iron Curtain was the difference between communism and capitalism. It's an Iron Curtain. I think Winston Churchill came up with the phrase.
Okay. That was the first part of your...
Right. That was my military experience up to that point. I got out in, like say, in 80. It was the end of 82, actually.
And how did you feel about that service? Or how did you feel about it?
Oh, how do I feel about that?
Yeah.
The Marine Corps? It's kind of funny. Well, I didn't know very much at the time because I went directly from high school to military service, so I don't have too much feeling about anything because I don't have too much experience about anything yet. But how I felt about the Marine Corps was different. And every Marine, every former Marine, has a love-hate relationship with the Marine Corps. And it's true. You love the Corps. Every Marine loves the Marine Corps. They'll be a Marine till they die. There's no question about it. It's a big brotherhood. And but the Marine Corps, being an institution that it is, it screws people. And a lot of people get screwed in the Marine Corps. It's called the Big Green Weenie. And it flies around and it just strikes whenever, when you least expect it. In other words, they screw it. And they make your life hard. They mess up your life.
How do they do that?
You get screwed. You get a punishment for something you didn't do, or something. It's just, and any institution has it, and the Army has it too.
Yeah.
I found that out when I got in the Army.
So when did you go into the Army?
I went in the Army. Well, what happened was it was in 2004. So I've been out of the military for 22 years.
And what did you do then?
And
between there?
Oh, between that, I was a police officer in D.C. for about 4 years when I got out of the Marines. And then I started working for the Department of Justice as a security specialist.
So you were pretty much working for the government all the time?
I was working, right, yes,
Okay.
exactly. When I retired about a year and a half ago, I had 36 years of government service.
Yeah. So actually all your life was government service?
Right.
Was it fun? Or,
Well, I remember I made, and that's another thing about in the Marine Corps, they kind of instill in you a sense of you have to serve. You have to do something. You have to make a difference. And I made the conscious decision that I wouldn't try to go the business way in life and chase the dollar.
yeah.
That I'm going to serve. I'm always going to be doing something that somehow helps somebody.
Yeah, that's actually a better feeling, right?
Yes, it is. And I kind of had that even before I went in the Marine Corps because I was a volunteer fireman for a couple of years before I went in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I did that too.
And that was, I didn't know it at the time, but that was actually a very learning experience for me about serving and helping people. And we were a rescue squad too. My fire company had a rescue squad, so we did fires plus traffic accidents and stuff like that.
Traffic accidents are not that nice, are pretty.
No. So yeah, and that was another thing. The war, the battle, I kind of was able to deal with that better because I had seen the war of
traffic accidents,
other household accidents and occurrences. So anyway, this is 2004, and I've been working, for the Department of Justice.
What is that department?
I'm sorry.
What is the Department of Justice? What do they do?
Department of Justice is a cabinet level department. The president has his cabinet, and there's different departments in the cabinet. The Department of Interior, the Department of State, Department of Justice.
And what does the Department of Justice do?
It's the Attorney General of the United States runs it. So it is basically what the Department of Justice is it's the law firm for the United States government. It runs, it's the prosecuting office, put it like that, the district attorney's office for federal laws.
Okay.
And there's also law enforcement attached to it also. And before Homeland Security came about and then took law enforcement officers, it was basically the premier law enforcement. And the Attorney General is the top law enforcement official in the country. He's considered the top law
Attorney General?
Yes. He's the top law enforcement officer in the country.
Does he have like a star or something?
Well, they have the equivalent of being a 3-star general, I believe. I think it's a 3-star general. But that's just the name. There's like a Surgeon General, Attorney General.
Surgeon General, that the general of the doctors or what?
Right. Yeah, it's the Surgeon General has the I can't remember the name of what they have, but it's the medical branch of the federal government. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But anyway, so I was working there, and one day I was at work, and it was late at night, and I was watching TV, and the news was on, and this was 2004. And I noticed they had a story on that the enlistment numbers were down because of the Iraq War. And that's when Fallujah was going on. It was very hot. And so nobody was joining anymore. Because right after 9/11, there was a big surge of people that joined the military.
Yeah.
And then by the time 2004, when things started really getting bad in Iraq, nobody wanted to join.
Everyone went out for
Right. So I got mad, I got indignant, whatever, I was pissed. So I got right on the phone, I called a Marine Corps recruiter, see if I could go back in the Marine Reserve. And I'm almost 45, 44, I'm like 11 months old. And he takes my, I tell him my story, and he just laughs and says, Sarge, you're way too old to come back in the Marine Corps. He said, but if you still want to serve, and as soon as he said that, I realized that there's an armory, a National Guard armory near my house. He said, if you still want to serve, the Army figures the age limit different than we do. In the Marine Corps, what they figured was, I think you had to be 27 or younger to join the Marines, right off the street.
Yeah.
And then if you had prior Marine service, like I had 5 years service prior, then you could add that on to 27. So 32 or 33 would be the oldest I could have gone back into the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So what the Army figures is whatever active duty time you have or prior service time you have, plus your amount of years you have left to age 60 has to equal 20 or more. So in other words, I had 5 years and I was almost 45. So
We're still
I
up to
made
go.
it. I made it by just a few months. I got under the wire where I could actually go. So anyway, so I called the National Guard recruiter, and it turned out that he actually worked out of the armory that was near my house, near where I lived. So he took me down. We did the paperwork, and I went and got the physical. The whole time thinking I'm not going to be taken, and I passed the physical. And they got me in, and that was that.
How long?
I thought that I'd be doing something because I'm an old guy. I'd be helping out with something, or like the supply sergeant or something. And they put me right into an infantry unit because I was in the infantry in the Marine Corps.
So you were infantry sergeant or something?
Yes.
Sergeant.
And then so my first 2 years with the National Guard, with the Army, I was in the infantry, and that was kind of interesting. To get back to what I said about the Marines instilling this real strong sense of military bearing into you, that helped me a lot for being away from the military for 22 years, that I was able to, kind of snap back into the military mindset right away. Because it was, incorporated into my brain at such a young age.
Yeah, so it drilled you and made you
Right.
more disciplined, right?
Right, exactly. And to understand the military and what it's about,
Yeah.
and how to act in the military. So because of that, that made it a lot more easier for me to come in cold after 22 years. So anyway, I was in the Maryland Army National Guard in 2004. And then in 2005, now I'm going to get my mission straight. 2005, I believe, I went to Katrina.
Where's that?
Katrina was a hurricane.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah.
And they deployed a lot of National Guard troops
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
down to Louisiana and Mississippi when it occurred. Happened to be that Louisiana National Guard was deployed to Iraq at that time too. Most of their units were deployed to Iraq. So that's why the president actually sent in regular military troops also, not just National Guard. But so I was actually deployed for Katrina.
How many were
deployed
sent?
in Mississippi and Louisiana and New Orleans. And that was pretty interesting because we were going on patrols against looters. Right, and going out and just finding people, because the whole neighborhoods were just devastated, and people that would stay around in the neighborhoods. And we were there like right after, 2 days after. That we find groups of people that we had to bring water and food to because they were still living, where their homes used to be.
You were up in the houses in the roof, or?
Well, no, it wasn't flooded at that point. The flooding only happened in New Orleans because of the levees being broken. So the actual flooding was not a big part of Katrina. Where I was, it was Goshen, Mississippi. It was ground zero where the hurricane hit the mainland, and it was terrible. I mean, just the closer you got to the water, the more damaged the houses were. So you got to the water. So all the communities that were around the Gulf were you didn't see any houses. You just saw foundations.
Oh, wow.
Okay, they're all the water just took them all away. All the houses, all the furniture, everything in the house. Not the people got out. Most people got out. Was just, what happened with the water comes crashing ashore, and that weakens the house, and then it fills up in, and then it comes back out, and then it washes everything back out. So everything was just taken back out into the Gulf.
And did you ever rescue a person there?
No actual real rescues. We, like you said, we found groups of people that we, say we had to rescue them. We didn't have to take them anywhere, but we had to let the authorities know where they were. And we had to get them water and food.
So we're pretty much like the pizza guys for the people like that.
One of the big things was the looting. That was going on. So we were doing looting patrols, and we found out that at least where we were, that most of the looting or the bad looting was done by contractors. It wasn't just bad people running around the street seeing what they could get. It was contractors that would go in the house. The owner of the house would not be there, obviously, anymore. The house is damaged. And he'd go to take out plumbing fixtures and whatever he could salvage from the house to use in the construction business or sell. And we'd find them and they'd say, no, we have permission. The owner, no, get out. Nobody's allowed to be doing that here. One of the funny things, well, not funny things, one of the things that happened while I was there, we were in Gulfport, Mississippi, because the unit traveled like a mobile unit. We spent a week in one area.
Did you make friends there with the unit? Because it's a bond.
No, it was my unit, so
okay.
So it was people that I knew. But we were doing the one mission. It was a checkpoint mission in Gulfport, and we had everything from the railroad. There's a railroad that goes along Gulfport that's parallel with the beach. 4 or 5 blocks up from the beach, and runs parallel with it. And nobody was allowed past the railroad. All the houses, all the destruction was in those 4 or 5 blocks. And so we had to stop cars and see what people were, why they were coming to go down into that way. And if somebody lived down there, they had to drive a license to show us that they lived down there. We're not going to let them go down to their place or whatever. But me and another guy were on the checkpoint. It was a checkpoint that was far away from anything. And it's when Rita.
Okay. It's okay.
It's when Hurricane Rita hit while we were out on this checkpoint. Hurricane Rita hit, I don't know, a month or something after Katrina. It was a bad hurricane also. So all we know is it started getting stormy, and then all the debris from Katrina started flying around. And we, what the heck is going on? Then it hit a deluge of rain, and we had a Humvee. We didn't have the doors for the Humvee. So we were just squished together in the Humvee trying to stay dry. But that was another thing. Because you go on these presence patrols that they call it, and that is to let the people know that the National Guard is there and the presence is there, so they won't act up, I guess.
Because they don't like loot or stuff.
Right, exactly. Just as long so the word gets around that they're in the area. They had to take the doors off the Humvees for the presence patrols, which was kind of strange because there were a lot of dogs, and dogs were like packing, I guess, at the time because people's dogs, and they're out because of the storm. And so they're getting together and forming these packs. They're not wild, they're domesticated dogs, but they're kind of wild because they're fending for themselves.
Yeah.
And they would chase less than the Humvee. And the door's not there. So they can just reach up and bite you in the butt if they want. Hadn't worked. Our biggest threat was from the stray dogs.
Really? That's cool.
So, but after that, in 2006, that was 2005, and then in 2006, President George Bush started the Operation Just Cause, I think it was, and it was the border mission.
Where?
Border mission along Arizona, Texas, and California border, Mexican border.
Yeah.
And and that was a very interesting mission. I enjoyed it immensely. I really like it. I really fell in love with the Sonoran Desert. Sonoran Desert's great.
And what did you do there?
We went up President's patrols again along the border, but mostly they'd have points because we were there to assist the border patrol. They had points set up along, near the border, and high points, on hills or whatever, that we would look down, monitor, and look down, and if we saw movement across the border, we'd call them in, and the border patrol would come and
Pick them up.
pick them up. Right. So that was pretty interesting, and it was fun to do. And like I said, the Sonoran Desert was, because I didn't know much about the desert, never really been there. And everything in the desert, it seems, is designed to kill.
Really?
All the like this little yellow caterpillar, it's so fluffy and furry, it's cute. And what it does, and it goes, at night it comes through your seeds, and they come in groups and just get all over everything. And what it is it's poisonous, and it has two little pinchers that will come out of its tail, but you don't see that, right? And its tail will come back up like a scorpion, kind of like it. So what they'll do is they'll use the two little pinchers to put holes in your skin, and then they throw up it. And the throw up or whatever is the poison and the toxin, and it would make you really sick, and it would hurt. And but just a little caterpillar like that, a cute little caterpillar, and it's designed to kill. But the thing is, everything else knows it. So if you're not in the food, if you're not food for something, every animal just leaves other animals alone, unless they want to kill them for food. So one time we were in the desert. It was at night, and actually there was moonlight, so we had enough light to see. And I was squatted on the ground. We were taking a break, and I was squatted on the ground, and a rattlesnake came up within 3 feet of me, and just turned and looked at me with how they smell with their tongue. That's why when they're around, they're smelling, because they can't really see that well, but they can tell if they're in danger or whatever from the smell. And he just did that a few times, and just looked at me and just went on his way.
You were just calm and just looked at him.
Yeah, I was just looking at him. I just looked at him. It didn't look like a rattlesnake. You don't have to worry about until they get into an S stance.
Okay.
That's where they're going to strike.
Yeah.
They kind of coil up.
Yeah, I like the
S stance, right?
Okay. You kind of like
And
charge
then you
up.
hear the rattle.
Yeah.
You hear the rattle. If that happens, then you know
You should go.
stay away. Huh?
You should run away or.
No, he just went on his way. He just kind of was meandering. I guess he was looking for his mice or whatever to eat. He just stopped. I guess he noticed that I was there. He just looked at me and did the thing with his tongue a few times and turned around and just kept going on his way.
That's pretty funny.
And that's the thing. Like I said, that's the thing. It's everything there is designed to kill, but it's safe because nobody wants to mess with anything.
Yeah. So everyone is. It's like right now, everyone has nukes, but no one wants to shoot the nukes because no one wants to get.
Like they say, back in the Wild West.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West was a lot safer than what they show in the movies, and one of the reasons was because everybody was armed.
Yeah.
If everybody's got guns, nobody wants to use them.
Yeah.
Right.
But if only one party has guns and the other does, then they're
Exactly.
screwed. Yeah.
Right. When you put the odds in favor of one other group, then that leads to trouble. So then, anyway, all right. So the border mission, like I say, I love the desert. I love Arizona too. I fell in love with Arizona.
You know Arizona iced tea?
Arizona iced tea?
Yeah, that's really good.
It's popular there too. So when about a year after that, we started training to go to Afghanistan.
In the desert, right?
Because they know that, right? They know, when they call it getting thrown into the breach. You know when you're gonna be deployed. You get usually about a year's warning when you're gonna get deployed. So you have to kind of adjust your training towards that. And I guess this was like April of '87. I went to drill one day, and they said, well, we're not going to Afghanistan. And we're supposed to go to Afghanistan at the end of the year. Right? They said, well, we're not going to Afghanistan. That's all changed. So some people were like, oh, and some people were like, oh, great. But then they said, but we're going to Iraq in June, which is just a few months away. So like the next month we had to leave for pre-deployment training, which is something all on its own, but I'll talk about that too. So what happened was we were getting caught up in the surge, the Iraq surge. I don't know if you remember, it was 2007, 2008. George Bush sent a lot of troops in.
How many?
A surge. Thousands of troops, extra troops in, to just overwhelming manpower in the country. Now, when you asked about the National Guard and, when they go to combat, what happens? Explain about the National Guard is, and I didn't know this until after I got in the National Guard. I didn't think too much about it. All I knew about was the Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps is the Marine Reserves, right? The Air Force and the Army has the Army Reserves.
Yeah.
The Air Force has the Air Force Reserves. Right? And they are there the reserves are there to supplement, be supportive to that service, right? The National Guard, the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard, Air Force National Guard, but they just call it the Air National Guard, are not really there to support them. They're a separate entity. They are an army unto themselves. Say the Army Reserve, there are the MOSs, military occupational specialties, that everybody has a job, right? What you do. They've got hundreds of occupational specialties. It's not just everybody's just not in the infantry or whatever. They cooks, there's everything, mechanics, all that stuff. Anything that's there to support the infantry and the combat arms part of the military that's what the Army Reserve does. They support it.
Yeah.
The National Guard has those MOS. The Reserve does not have infantry.
Okay. Really?
There's no Army Reserve infantry units.
Wait, so the National Guard is pretty much like the Army, right?
It has all the MOSs.
Okay.
So, or most of the MOSs.
They have artillery too?
They have artillery. They have everything. They say for some reason God came down from heaven and said, "There's no more United States Army," and they just disappear. The National Guard
Still
can
there.
just take over and do their job because they're like an army unto themselves.
Yeah. How many
They have
are-
all the MOSs. So when I went to Iraq, it was the majority of the troops at that time of the surge were National Guard. And at the time, one of the things when I joined the National Guard too, the National Guard Chief of Staff said that there's only two kinds of guardsmen: those that are deployed and those that are going to get deployed. So it was a busy time for the National Guard.
Yeah.
So anyway, we went to pre-deployment training, and that was 3 months at Fort Dix, New Jersey, not far from where I grew up too, actually. And I grew up, and it was a very active base during Vietnam, and it was strange that, and that's where I grew up, that time. So it's strange to actually go back there and train for another war. Than my memories of growing up during Vietnam and see having the Army that close and people being deployed from that base over to Vietnam. And that was interesting. At 3 months, I call it kind of like a gentleman's boot camp because we only had a half a day off the whole time I was there. A half a day. I'm talking about 7 days a week. We were 7 days a week, all day long, doing some kind of training. And the half a day off we had was July 4th. They let us have the last part of the day off, and we could watch fireworks. But so there was a lot of shooting, a lot of training with weapons.
Really? What type of
That
weapons?
would be probably better.
Well, I was in the cavalry unit, still on cavalry unit, and our weapons are the 50 caliber machine gun, the Mark 19, which is the grenade. It's a grenade launcher. It's like a machine gun. Launches grenades.
Oh, the round thing, right? What has like the barrel and stuff?
No, it actually loads. It has an ammo can, big old ammo can, and 40 millimeter grenades in it. And it's kind of fat, has a shorter barrel than the machine gun. And you had people, and you're just launching the grenades downrange.
How was it shooting that type of gun?
Well, it's fun.
Yeah.
Shooting guns is fun. And like I said, we did a lot. I did more shooting in that 3 months than I did in 5 years in the Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
It was just a lot of training. It would range a lot of, most of the days.
Oh.
And so anyway, and it was during the summer again. It seems like when I go through training somewhere, it was during the summer in New Jersey. And got through that, and then we went, everybody goes to Kuwait for 2 weeks.
Really?
Before you en route to Iraq. And they give you 2 weeks in Kuwait to do a little bit more training, plus to get acclimatized to the weather.
Oh, yeah.
Acclimate.
So your body gets used to it?
Because we got off the plane in Kuwait, and it was in at night too. It just hit. It's just unbelievable.
How was it?
The heat was unbelievable. Actually, Kuwait is hotter than Iraq. It's in the south. It's south of Iraq. And so it's kind of like how, North Carolina and Georgia and Florida are hotter than New Jersey and, and Maryland.
Yeah.
So you get 2 weeks of training there to get you used to the heat and working in the heat. It was strange too, because I remember thinking, it is just so bright in Kuwait because it's regular desert, like the white kind of desert that you think, Middle Eastern desert. That it is so bright. The sun is so strong that if you're not wearing sunglasses, everything's glared out.
And
So, I think there was a movie, The Three Kings, or something like that, with George Clooney.
Yeah.
Just about the Gulf War.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that they kind of had that in the movie where everything seemed so bright. If you try to look somewhere and the sun was shining right a certain way, you couldn't see it. It was just because everything was glared out. And that's the way it really was in Kuwait. It was just because the sun is reflecting off the sand. Mm-hmm. Everything was it's just hard to see. You gotta have sunglasses.
Yeah.
But so we trained there, and then we went in the Chinook helicopters. We got flown into Iraq.
Do you know this one song? Do you know this one movie? How's it called? It's called Jarhead.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about the Gulf War.
Yeah, the Gulf War.
And what they do before they got deployed, they watch this movie in the cinema. Like this movie about Vietnam, and then there was like this Fortunate Son, like with the helicopters, like meow.
All right. Well, that was Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
The battle or the Flight of the Valkyrie.
Flight of the Valkyrie.
And
did you kind of like?
Those are Hueys. And that was a Huey. They don't use Hueys anymore. The workhorse now of the military is the Black Hawk.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a Huey on steroids.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And but it is bigger and bulkier. Mm-hmm. Probably harder to fly. I don't know. But for main transportation and stuff, they use the Chinooks.
What are those?
And it's like the UH-53s. And they're the ones that have like the two, like one big propeller up this side and another smaller propeller in the back.
Oh, with
both facing up.
Oh, okay,
right.
Yeah.
And they carry a lot. They're utility helicopters. They carry a lot. They carry supplies or troops. And I just remember thinking too, when I was there, I was looking to the left and the right. Where the GIs were all lined up. We got a lot of combat gear on, and I was thinking, how did I get here? I'm too old for this. I'm way too old for this. I'm with all these young guys. Like I said, I didn't even think I was going to pass the physical. And all of a sudden, it seems like the next day I'm waking up and I'm in a Vietnam type movie, in the military flying a helicopter into the country. But the Iraq tour, I would call it, for us, I would say it was a combat light tour. We got hit a few times. We were in some combat, but it wasn't too bad. We were actually in the south, in Basra. And in Iraq, they had what they call landowners, and that is whatever military command that owns that space. That's the space that's under their command. They call them the landowners. They're like the sheriffs of that part of the country. And the South in Iraq, the landowners were the Brits. So we worked a lot with the Brits. And
so you got a British accent.
Yeah. It seems like the stereotypes of the British soldiers, military, is true. Because a lot of our officers act like super polite, very polite. And I like the Brits. And there were a lot of Brit contractors there too. A lot of them. Actually, not just contractors for support stuff, but contractors, like we had our Blackwater contractors, like that were mercenaries that were there. A lot of Brit mercenaries, I guess, for lack of a better word, that were in that part
contractors, okay, yeah, that you hire and stuff. Yeah.
Right, and they were all former SASs. And I dealt with them a little bit, and they were good people.
So, do you remember like a combat scene? The combat?
Well, everything would happen. It would happen so quick, and you just go into like a television. You do what you're trained to do, and that's why you just automatically fall back on your training. You do it. That's why you train so hard, so you have the muscle memory. Baseball, football, or say baseball, and somebody's throwing the ball to you. You can tell by where the ball is, exactly the way he throws it, and by how it first leaves his hand, exactly where it's going to end up. So you know whether they'll reach over here. You see how it's going. You just instinctively do it because you've done it so many times. It's muscle memory, and that's what happens when you're in combat. If you're not well trained, you're not going to act well in combat. If you're well trained and you get the training before you go, then your mind is just going to revert to its training automatically, and you're not going to be scared until after it's over.
Oh, really? Afterwards? So you're scared before and afterwards?
Yeah, in a way, you're kind of scared the whole time you're there. That's what kind of makes it sucky.
Yeah.
But I must say about Iraq is I was the most anything that I've ever been there. I was the coldest I've ever been. I was definitely the hottest I've ever been. I was the happiest I've ever been.
Really?
I was the maddest I've ever been. Yeah. I was the saddest I've ever been. And so everything, every emotion, every physical thing. I was the tiredest that I've ever been. I'd go on 4-day 4-day missions, and you get like 20 minutes of sleep a day. In those 4 days. Maybe, you just nap. Get 5 minutes nap when you can.
Would you explain the mission?
I basically, and a lot of people, I don't know how much people realize this, but a lot of that war was fought on energy drinks.
Really?
Yeah. I constantly had a green Monster. I constantly had one. Especially when we were going on long missions. And to this day now, if I try to drink one, I throw up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I drank so much of it there. But yeah, and all units had energy drinks. Like I said, that war was fought on energy drinks.
Okay.
Well, the missions in Iraq were, it depended on what your unit was assigned to do. Right? And we had a lot of units, most of them probably, had multi-missions. We had route security, we had QRF, which is Quick Reactionary Force. That's like a unit that would respond to something or somebody needed help. They call it the QRF. We had prisoner transportations, we did prisoner transports. We actually did, because we were cavalry, reconnaissance. Cavalry's job is reconnaissance. And because of that, we actually were able to go on some long-range reconnaissance missions. We were kind of near the border to Iran. And they wanted to know what was going on around the border, so we had to go out, call it Indian territory. And force protection. Force protection is a guy, people who are up in like the towers around the base, protecting the force, keeping the base protected. We did that. So depending on the kind of mission that you're going to do, what it was like, it was. To me, I guess there really wasn't anything hard about it. It was interesting to deal with the Iraq people. If you had a mission where you'd actually deal with the Iraqis and see them, find out, I basically found out that Iraqs are so much like Americans where they're not political. Your average American's not too political. They might be a Christian, but not go to church on Sunday. Average Iraqi is the same thing. He's just trying to do his job, just, bring home, the bacon for, bacon, not Muslim bacon, but bring home money, make money to support his family. And he might go to not temple, but
the Mecca? No.
No,
The synagogue? No, that's...
Yeah, what is it called? He might go to a religious thing just on Saturday. Yeah, their church, what do you call it? It's not temple, it's the mosque. He might go to the mosque on, Saturday. He might not. Probably a lot of them didn't, just like a lot of Americans don't go to church, but consider themselves Christians. And that's what the majority of people are. And then, of course, they have the fanatics, and that's a small minority.
Like here.
But you never know, exactly. And you never know what you're going to run into. So you don't know. And in fact, you realize you're an occupying army, a foreign army in their land. They're not going to like you. They might be polite to you, but they don't like the fact that you're there. I mean, would you? Would anybody in the world like the fact that a foreign army is occupying their land? No. So one of the bad parts about it was, you never knew if the Iraqi, the insurgent that you were going to kill or, fight, if he was doing it because he was a terrorist, per se, a radical Muslim, or he was just somebody that was pissed because you were in his country. So that kind of weighed on him. And they were a good people. They were nice. They were polite for the most part. I don't know really much else to say. I dealt with a lot of the prisoners, a lot of the hardcore bad guys, and I learned that with an Iraqi or a fundamentalist, or maybe, I don't say stereotype and make him Arabs, but to deal with an Arab, you maintain eye contact and you don't show any weakness ever. You don't let them punk you out. And they'll try to punk you out.
For example?
Like, try to take control of the situation. And you don't let them. And you don't show any kind of fear around them. And if that's the case, if you do that, if you don't let them punk you out, then you can be in charge of, you control the situation.
Okay. So, it's maybe this is, this is maybe a little bit, like a little harder question. What do you think about killing?
Killing is never a good thing. That's why. And I'm kind of, actually when we talk about hunting, I'm not a hunter. I don't like hunting. But if you were a hunter and you brought me deer meat, some medicine, I'd eat it. So I'm kind of a hypocrite on that.
Yeah.
But killing is not a good thing. But there are assholes that need to be killed. the thing that people will say about Iraq and how wrong it was about us being there, and the WMDs, that we were there because of a lie, and there were no WMDs, and that Iraq was just a big nothing war, was I kind of believe that Bush, President Bush, something 9/11 had occurred, and it was a couple of years after 9/11, but everything was Middle East oriented at that time. The threat to the U.S. was Middle East oriented. So they did go into Afghanistan almost right away, and then Iraq 2 years later. And some people say it's because Saddam Hussein threatened his father, killed his father, so he was getting revenge or whatever. I kind of think maybe he, with the WMDs, just knew that there was going to be a ground war between us and them, and said, okay, if you want a jihad, you didn't want a jihad in this country, so you want a jihad, meet us in Iraq, we'll fight you there.
Yeah.
And they showed up, and we killed tens of thousands of them. And those that we killed, you got to know that there's innocent people or good people that were killed, right, on both sides. But out of all those thousands that were killed, how many did we keep from coming to this country to commit their jihad? Because they're going to come. They're going to have their jihad, and if they can facilitate it by coming to this country and bringing it to this country, they'd rather do that. So, it was better to kill them there than to have to kill them here.
True. I think you should have to kill them anyway, right?
Right. It was going to happen. That's what I'm saying. There was going to be a war. It was getting to the boiling point where there was going to be some combustion.
Yeah.
And there was going to be a ground war. And I think, what a better way than to say, okay, we'll meet you here. And they did. Al-Qaeda came. It wasn't just Al-Qaeda in Iraq that we were fighting. It was Al-Qaeda from the whole area surrounding Iraq that came to fight that jihad in Iraq that we were able to kill.
So you fought against Al-Qaeda?
Yeah, Al-Qaeda was this is before ISIS.
Yeah.
Al-Qaeda was the enemy.
Do you remember the firefight?
Yeah, I mean, they were, like I said, they would be over quick because they didn't like to have a maintained contact. They used to like to hit and run. So it's not in your typical terms of one major force trying to overthrow another major force on the battlefield. So I kind of equated it to, if you know much about American history with the Indian Wars, kind of equated to the Indian Wars, where the Indians would actually hit, there would be small skirmishes with the soldiers, as opposed to these armies lining up on the field and having major battles. And that's kind of what it was in Iraq. It was more Indian Wars than anything.
So there was it was like guerrilla warfare.
Well, yeah, in a way, it was, they call it insurgency.
Yeah.
And again, one of the hard things was you couldn't tell the difference between an insurgent and somebody that would just be fighting you because you're in their country.
Yeah. Do you remember, not knowing the difference between someone?
Well, unfortunately, while you're there, and this it might aggravate the situation somewhat, but you can't trust anyone.
Yeah.
You can't even trust the little kids. You can interact with them and laugh with them, but you don't trust them. I'm trying to remember what. The head of the Department of Defense. He's a Marine general. Can't remember his name now. Sorry, I'm getting so old now. My brain is not good at recalling things. But he had once, about Iraq, he had said he went there, or he once made the statement about, paraphrasing, be nice, be respectful with everybody, to everybody in the room. and be polite, but have a plan to kill everyone in the back of your mind. You can find and look at it because it exactly is what it is. It's what you know you're there. You know the bad guys are there. You want to be nice. You want to be respectful. But you have to know that you just might have to kill them all. Yeah. When the sun starts hitting the fan.
Do you remember your first kill?
Yeah, but I don't like talking about that. That was in the Marines.
Yeah.
The hardest thing, I think, with my Iraq experience was that I was with younger guys in the same age as my daughter. You know, they were so. I can understand. One of the paradoxes, I guess, of war is that wars have to be fought by younger men because you have to be physically able to do it. It is very physically taxing to fight a war. Even with all the modern equipment that we have, it's very physical. Wars are physical. But to be able to deal with combat, the psychological part of combat, you have to be mature, you have to be older, you have to be old and wise. So if you're too old and your body can't fight the war, then you're no good. But if you're too young and your mind can't take the war, you're not doing any good either. So that's like the paradox of war.
And you were the perfect combination, right?
The thing was, you know, when I went back in, and you know, the same rank that I was 25 years before that, and so I was kind of dealing with these younger guys as my peers. Yeah, so actually, if you think about it, it's really good midlife crisis. You know, men have their midlife crisis, right? They have like stereotypical in this country midlife crisis. Like a 45-year-old guy gets a convertible and tries to get a young woman. That's midlife crisis, trying to find his youth again. I actually got that for free because it was a perfect time to have a midlife crisis because I was acting out in a younger. I was included in a group of the younger generation. So yeah, that's if you want to say that I have any kind of PTSD, it's because of that. It's seeing seeing firsthand and knowing because of my years what it's going to mean to them in the future because of what happened to me in the Marine Corps, how it never leaves you. That it's happening now and there's nothing I can do about it. It's like seeing, if you're, I don't try to put a comparison together. If you have a big family, and all of a sudden everybody's on the highway, and all these crashes just start happening, and people start dying, people in your family, young people, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think probably a dream that I had a few times, maybe it's my only, like I said, my only thing with PTSD. I don't think I have PTSD, but everybody has some kind of, reactions that they have to psychologically deal with because of the war. I remember one time I came back and we came back in the summer. So this was about 2 months. This was about 2 months later, and I was mowing my lawn, and I had the same, what do you call it? Earphones. What do you call it?
Ringing?
No, the little listen to music. Not an iPhone, but an iPod.
Yeah.
I had the same iPod that I had when I read. And since I was with younger guys, they liked the young music. That's the music I had. It was mostly like Linkin Park.
Oh, you like Linkin Park?
Well, I do now. It doesn't hear it in Iraq. But that's what reminds me of Iraq when I hear it.
Oh, really?
It reminds me of Iraq. And Dropkick Murphys. And but anyway, I was listening to my iPod as I was mowing my lawn, and the music that I had when I rap came on, and I just had to stop. There's a park next to my house. I just had to stop mowing my lawn and just sit down in the park and reflect for a while. It just started bringing memories back like in a rush. That happened, and a dream that I happened a few times would be, I had a daughter, and she'd be on the playground or whatever. She was little, and in a while on the playground, kids are playing rough, whatever, they get hurt, and I'd be there and I'd go over and, maybe scratch or whatever, they'd be on the ground, they'd be hurt. Just, try to take care of them. Everything's okay, look at them. That started like that, at the playground, and the little boy was hurt. I went over to look down at him and see what was wrong with him. And somebody just looked up in the air, and the sky, there was a hot sun there, and just cleared everything out. And then when I refocused on the child, it was, an 18-year-old soldier who was badly wounded. And so that's the only kind of dramatic thing that I would say that happened with me. Those two things. And I only had that dream a couple of times. And not too, what they used to call a shell shock back in World War II.
You were like,
right, you're just nervous about things. Any kind of loud noise or anything. A couple of times when I'd be driving down the street, I'd see some rocks or something, a pile of rocks on the wrong side of the road, or even like one of those surveyor state with a flag, a little flag on it, just on the side of the road, and my heart would just skip a beat because that's how they would mark, where they're going to set off the IEDs. You go past that landmark, and they know how fast you were going and how long it would take to get to where the IED was going to go off, so they go in to set it off. So, and a few times when I was like on a highway, and they have like really very high street lights, and the way they kind of, when you drive under them, they have like a rainbow effect, like you can see it coming over, and that kind of made me jump a few times because that's the way rockets used to look when they shot at you. But for me, it's pretty mild. It's not anything. Definitely not going to go to the VA or get any kind of drugs for it. There's a lot of guys do. The Army made a big thing. The military made a big thing about PTSD. If you have problems, say something. And a lot of guys did. But I grew up. My military experience at the time was from the 1970s, and when I was in the Marine Corps, and mostly in the Marine Corps, it was if you go through something, just drive on, shut up, keep it to yourself if you got problems. So a lot of people turn to alcohol then to self-medicate, and they wouldn't seek help. So it went from people not seeking help to everybody seeking help.
Oh, yeah.
even guys that didn't have it, they were convinced they had it even though they don't have it. So I don't know if there's anything. Go ahead and ask whatever you want to ask.
Okay. So, like, there were a lot of mines in in Iraq, right?
Yeah, the IED, that was the biggest. Improvised explosive device, that was the biggest threat.
Yeah. And did you ever have to clear a mine?
No. EOD, emergency ordnance disposal. That's whose job that was. And so if you're on patrol and came upon something suspicious, you have to secure both sides of it so nobody else can come towards it. And then call EOD. And they're the ones that came out. And they came out in force also and would clear it. And you never mess with anything like that unless it was your job, unless you were an EOD specialist. You stayed away from it if something was suspicious. And they were not very good at placing them sometimes, and they were obvious that they were there, so you could see it right away. And the biggest complaint we would have was sometimes it would take EOD so long to get there.
So you had to stay there long?
Yeah, so we'd have to wait there for like 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
And then EOD gets on the scene, they're basically in control of the scene. They might have come with a big enough force to go in and secure the area themselves. They might not. They might say, no, look, you got to stay here until we're done. So your whole mission is basically shot then.
Okay. So when you were not in combat and when you were not on duty or not on a mission, what did you do then?
Actually, there was a gym. You could work out in the gym, but there's a lot of guys did. I did too, somewhat. Watched a lot of videos.
Really?
Yeah, it had a little video player, portable video player. I think I actually watched like 2 or 3 whole seasons of Grey's Anatomy, which is one of the stupidest shows that's on TV.
Yeah.
And I actually got into it, and I just feel yucky about having gotten into the show. But it's funny because, oh, by the way, the one guy on there, Patrick Dempsey, McSteamy or whatever he was, I had pulled him over when I was a cop in DC.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Back in the early 80s, in the mid 80s.
And so, how was the feeling of like the community feeling with the other guys who were in your squad?
You know, it's strange. One of the weird things about it was, once you get to your base, you're put in these temporary tents. You're temporarily put in these tents until the housing is available for you. And the housing is what we call pods. And they're different kinds of trailers, basically. It could be just like a single trailer, and it would be like a bunch of bunks in a single trailer. Or it would be like a big double-wide trailer, which would be cordoned off in 4 pieces, and you have bunks along it. You didn't necessarily get put with your unit. They would take people as they came and put them where they could. And you might be with 2 or 3 people from it's basically your unit is there in that area, but it might not be your squad, your section.
Yeah.
And so everybody was kind of piecemealed around. So the unit, the guy in my pod, from 3 different squads. And we had squad missions at the time. So in other words, one squad might be doing one mission, another squad might be doing another mission, another type of mission. Like one's doing force protection, and one's doing prisoner transport. So there's different times. So it's constantly comings and goings. And every once in a while, it would get to the point where everybody would be not doing a mission, be there the pod together, because you get, they're your group mates, so you're friendly with them. And I had a pretty good pod. The guys were in my pod. And when the time that we could, like, all be there at once and didn't have to sleep because we were about to go on a mission or whatever, we used to have hookah pipes, hookah parties. And that were actually kind of famous in that area. A lot of people would come to.
And you would like smoke hookahs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like, because you couldn't. General order number 1 was no alcohol.
Yeah.
No alcohol. And number 2 was no pornography. So you couldn't really. I guess smoking cigars or whatever. They had near beer, alcohol-free beer.
Yeah.
Some guys used to like to try to smoke a cigarette real fast, try to get lightheaded over it, and then drink beer, the near beer, the alcohol-free beer. So it'd be like they're drinking beer and getting a buzz from drinking the beer, or do the hookah thing.
Yeah. Just one question. I don't know. What was the scariest mission you were on?
I guess one time we were on patrol and somebody shot at us with an RPG at the Humvee that I was in. And he was a terrible shot. So it went like 30 feet in front of us. And I guess he thought we were going a lot faster than we were really going, so he really shot one before he had to. And then a couple others opened up on us, but none of them hit us. And our gunner had to open up on them. It was the guy, actually the gunner behind us, the vehicle behind us, that basically took them all out. I guess that was maybe the time where, that it didn't all happen at once, so it was kind of a I don't want to say a battle, it was just a firefight, a short firefight. And to where, my adrenaline got running, but It wasn't. It's funny because I could tell you that I wasn't scared there, and then I could tell you that I was scared the whole time I was there, and be completely truthful with you. Both things are completely true.
But so maybe you're scared. Maybe you're scared when you have adrenaline, and then maybe you're not scared when you have adrenaline.
No, you're not. When you have adrenaline, when you get the adrenaline rush, I guess that everybody might get it different, but when you get the adrenaline rush, that's when your muscle memory kicks in. That's when your training kicks in. And you're going to do what you're trained to do. And you know it so well that you just automatically do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's always after when something happens that you might get, oh man, that was messed up. This could have happened or that could have happened. And when you're second guessing what you did. Just remember the main things to do is remember to shoot and move. And have trust in your training. Don't second guess. Well, they taught me this, but that might not be right. Don't think that. Just do what you were trained because you were trained the right way. And one of the things like I say also, shoot and move. Never stay in one place.
Shoot and move.
Shoot and move. You get, sit down in a position, you think you're going to be safe. No. You're not going to be safe there.
Because people kind of notice that you're there.
They'll notice that you're there, right? They'll eventually target you. So, the things to remember how you're there. So I remember when we got back, I didn't feel stressed over there because it was kind of like just doing your job every day, right? But then when we got back to Kuwait, because you go back to Kuwait also again before you go back to the States. Went back to Kuwait for a week or 10 days or something like that. And I remember coming out of the big white tents that they have in Kuwait. The time I was going to the Port Johns that were, a ways away. It just didn't have to have my gun with me. Over there you had to have your gun with you. You had to have your rifle or pistol with you everywhere, even on base. You had to have it. It was like, that's kind of strange. I don't know what. And I just looked up again in the sky. This big war came over me. I realized that I was safe, basically. Wait, there's not much going on here. I was safe. It was just this feeling of relaxation. Like the stress was lifted from my body. I was like, yeah, I'm safe again. And at that point I realized, I guess I really, you do get wound up while you're there, and without even realizing.
Maybe it's because of the adrenaline.
Well, it's the adrenaline, it's just constant state of readiness when you're there.
And then you get the adrenaline kicking and you really stress really fast, right?
Right. And a couple of things that, even after being home for a few months, you wake up in the middle of the night, say, where's my rifle? Where's my rifle? Crap, oh.
You wake up your wife?
No, where's my rifle?
Oh, yeah, but I mean, you wake up your wife.
Oh, yeah. Where's my kid? Exactly. You don't realize, because you constantly, like when you wake up when you're there, I would sleep with my rifle would be right next to me in the bed. Yeah. And if I didn't have it, if my rifle wasn't in my bed, where the hell was it? Somebody take it. So I was like, where's my rifle? I didn't leave it somewhere, did I?
Well, my dad once left his rifle in the woods. When they were in the army, in the German army, they did field practice, and they were target shooting, and he went to the bathroom, and his rifle was there, and he went to the bathroom, and when he came back on the half of the way, the guy, well, he didn't really forget it, but the lieutenant said, no, you have to, the lieutenant, lieutenant, that's what they call him in Germany, he said, no, you have to go back to the base, go to the commander of the battalion and say you forgot, you went to the bathroom and you forgot your rifle. And then you have to go back to into the woods for he just wanted to make him march 5 miles. Yeah. So he had to march 5 miles alone with the commander.
Oh,
he was yelling at him the whole time. Yeah.
I was with a friend of mine in Iraq, and we were reading in the DFAC, the diving facility, and I had my rifle, he had his pistol, and He had a shoulder holster. He took his coat off, put it on the chair next to him, and he took his pistol off and put it on the seat of the chair next to him. And then when we left, and I wasn't paying attention to him, I always have my rifle, so you know it's right there at your feet. You're not gonna leave it. I saw, you know, he put his coat on when he left. He left his pistol sitting on the chair next to him. He got in big trouble. Yeah, that's something you don't want to do.
No.
I don't know if there's...
Yeah. Okay. So, I have another question. What was the dangerous mission you were on?
The recon missions were actually, they were very dangerous because, as I said, we were in Indian territory. So the enemy was all around us, but we were, you know, hidden, basically. You know, we kicked and concealed. So that's probably the most dangerous, because of when we got found out, we would just be killed outright. So that's probably the most dangerous.
Do you have any?
Everything was dangerous.
Yeah.
No, you could go on, you could be in a firefight. I never was in a firefight for like 2 hours. What I'm saying, a guy can be in a firefight for 2 hours.
Wait a minute.
And then, you know, 2 days later, you know, get blown up going to the bathroom at the base. So you never know, you're never safe, whether you're in heavy combat at the time or you're just doing what you do every day. So there's nothing, you don't really think of it being any more dangerous. You know, every day could be instant. I kind of also equate it to, just think of yourself, you're on a very pitch dark night, and you're on this, and there's fog, and you're on the highway, and you can hear traffic, and you have no idea when there's going to be a truck that's going to be coming right at you, you know, when you can't get out of the way. You have no time to save yourself. It just comes out of nowhere and kills you. That's basically kind of like what it is.
So you're
just doing what you're doing, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen fast. You know, hopefully, you won't have too much time to think about it, and you won't be, you know, badly wounded and go out in agony. So it's kind of like that. Just think of yourself if you're on the highway and you hear all this traffic, you hear these trucks going by, and you just never know there might be one coming right at you at 80 miles an hour, and you don't see it until it's like 5 feet away.
That's how it is. But just with a lot of other cars on the side, right?
Well, no. I'm saying this as in you just don't know when it's coming.
Yeah.
And to equate it to something that you might understand is like being lost on the highway and you don't know, or a big parking lot. Say it's a humongous big parking lot and cars are just zipping all over the place in the parking lot. You never know, and nobody can see anything. You don't know if one's about to slam you or not. Or you might be able to just walk through the parking lot and nothing.
You think you were lucky?
I guess most people are, because you know, and the chances are you know, if you go, even in going to Vietnam, the chances are you weren't going to be killed. A lot of guys got killed, but the chances are that you weren't going to be killed. You know, there was very few units that everybody got killed in the unit. So your chances are better than 50-50 when you go.
Okay. But they're still there.
They're still there, exactly. And even if you have, you know, you're not facing a lot of combat, whatever mission you're doing in the combat zone. You know, it's like, you know, there are people killed on the highways around where you live. There's so many people killed every year. So it's dangerous, right? But if there was a group of people that you know that all they wanted was you dead, and you don't know if they were going to blow you up or not, you know, you don't know when it was going to happen. It's scarier than knowing that, oh, okay, this amount of people, there's more chances of me dying in a car accident. You know what I mean?
So it's more upfront and it's more personal, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So you know you're there to kill them and they're there to kill you.
Yeah, you know that. You're right. It can. And one of my biggest worries, or there is that you get, like blown up in an IED explosion and not die, and get taken prisoner.
That's the worst part.
Exactly. That's nightmare material right there.
Did it ever happen to anyone?
I'm sure it did. Yeah.
Oh.
Is that it?
Well, I still have a few questions.
Sure.
Okay, so did you write letters home, or how did that work?
Yeah, I did write a few letters home. You do get very in touch with your mortality while you're there. It was very, even though, like I said, your chances are pretty good that you're going to come back unscratched. But still, what I said before about it does happen, and you know that they're out there to get you. So, I wrote letters to people that I cared about saying, if I don't see you again. That kind of thing. But I guess everybody does that.
And you said before that.
Well, the thing about it was they have, little PX areas where they actually have like fast food. Like we had a Pizza Hut and Burger King.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a big compound.
Right?
There's it was on the base, and there was what do you call it? A basketball court.
Oh, okay.
The PX is on like one end of it, one side, and then a fast food restaurant. So
like
barber,
US, right?
A barber and and it's a coffee shop. Green Bean, I think is what they call it. It's like a Starbucks. And they also have Wi-Fi there.
Really?
Right. So you can go on the computer. So you go on Facebook and stuff. I don't think I was on Facebook at that time. No, but you can still emails and everything. So I did write a few letters, and people wrote some letters, but mostly. And then you can go to the one of the trailers was just phones. Put in, I think actually for free by a phone company. And you just go and you wait for a phone, and it was completely. They give you. I'm sorry, no, it wasn't free. The phone. They give you a card. You had to use a card, calling card, but you got those for free.
Okay.
And then you go and call people here in the States. You just got to know the time difference.
Did you ever call anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember talking to someone, like your wife, or?
I wasn't married at the time. I got divorced. Talking to my daughter and friends. Yeah.
Well, what did you talk to her about?
I was just like if you were calling her if I happened to call my daughter from here.
Yeah. It's like, hey, how are you doing? What's up?
Exactly. It's not.
Easy.
Even though you are aware that you're in a war zone, there's a war going on, and what we talked about before about knowing that you can be killed at any time, you're still just doing. You kind of have like the attitude of you're doing your job.
Yeah.
You're just there doing your job, and that's why I told my family this too. I said it's harder on you than it was on me.
Yeah.
Because I was just trying to do my job for a year. That's all I was thinking. I gotta go out and do. I gotta get up and go to work. And I wasn't really getting into. I'm not gonna. This is dangerous. But the people at home, they're thinking, oh, he's going through major combat every day, and it's not.
Yeah, it's because of the news, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I think all mortar shells and stuff are gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah. There was I watched this one documentary about these. They were called I don't know why it was called like that, but they were called Virgin Soldiers or something. I don't know why they were called like that. Well, they were called Virgin Soldiers because they hadn't seen combat before that documentary, and it was pretty much documenting people or soldiers who hadn't seen combat before.
Right. Their first experience.
Yeah. That's what Virgin Soldiers, one guy once said they should just make a war movie 6 hours long where the combat scenes are 25 minutes, 4 hours of just sitting around and flicking your stones and drinking energy drinks.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Exactly right.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what you did? You sat around and flicked stones?
Well, no, you're not. You're doing your job, but then there's downtime, and you're just doing stuff that you normally do in downtime. And it's kind of like, you know, when I was a policeman, I was a fireman and a policeman, right? With the police work, you're constantly I was busy all the time, always going on calls, so I'd always be going on calls. As a fireman, you're either like maintaining your trucks and doing things in the fire for the fire department training, or just at that time, this is back in the 70s, sitting around drinking beer because there was a bar in our firehouse. I know that volunteer fire companies don't do that anymore, but they did back then. And a lot of people would just go to the firehouse to go out to drink and wait for calls, wait for a fire call. But you're doing that, so you weren't doing anything, or not a whole lot, and then boom, you're put into a big, all of a sudden, within a few minutes, you're in this major situation with a fire or something going on. So it's hours and hours of tedious boredom, followed by a few moments of excitement, extreme excitement.
Okay, so you were more in combat. You were more excited than scared, or not excited, but I mean.
With me, I didn't. I just went into. It's like what do you call it? The tunnel vision.
Was it slow motion? Or
kind of. Not really. Maybe when I think back on it, kind of a slow motion kind of thing. But no, I'm talking about tunnel vision. You're knowing what you have to do, and that's all you're thinking about.
It's like in soccer when you're a goalie, when you're a goalie, it's like almost like that because you have tunnel vision. You're not thinking about rocket science now.
Exactly.
You're right there, and let's say it's 1-1, and it's the last game of the season, and it's who wins the championship, and your whole team worked really hard for it, and the whole squad is because everyone is looking at you, your team and enemy team, and then there is the shooter who shoots the ball at you, and you have to go left or right, up, down, or down, and then you go to one thing, like you said, it's a 50-50 chance. Your chance to get the ball is more. To get the ball is more. It's easier to get the ball to not get the ball. It's like
right. So I understand. So you had to pick a side.
Yeah.
And go and stay with it. And what I was saying before about how your muscle memory takes over. Once you train to do something, say you play soccer a lot, you play goalie all the time. You can tell because you got the tunnel vision, or you got that guy in your sight. That's all you're paying attention to. You don't see anything else that's going on. You just see that guy. You're watching every little move he makes. You're watching his eyes. You're watching his feet. You can tell by his eyes and his feet about what he's, after you've done it enough times, you can tell basically which side he's going to go to.
Yeah.
You just better have it because you're better trained at being the goalie. And that's what that you just automatically do. You don't even think about it. You just know it. And that's what good training is all about in the military.
That's what I had too. What I always knew that the shooters would always look right, but will shoot left. I knew that from my childhood. He was like obviously looking like that to the right, and I instantly knew he would shoot to the left.
Not very many people are good actors though.
No.
So somebody can tell, he's faking it. He's trying to trick me.
Yeah, and because he looked at it for 2 seconds.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I easily got it. And I even said when you look to the right, I even said right. I even said left.
Right. You're
and I was psychological. And he goes like this, and then he hit the ball really soft. So yeah, I tricked him in his trick. So.
Right. But like I say, you're easier. Your just mind automatically reads him. You know what to look for after you've been through it enough times. Yeah. Trained on it. You know what to look for, and you just do the right thing.
Like in military, like a prisoner, right? So if you interrogate a prisoner, you know exactly to look at them in the eye. Don't show any fear, right? That's the only thing.
Well, I guess when the interior, I don't know much about that. I wasn't in the intel side of it, but I guess when interrogating a prisoner is a whole lot of trickery. You don't let him know exactly what you know. You talk him out of whatever you want to know without him knowing that he's giving up the information that he's giving up.
Yeah. That's what a guy once did in World War II. And his prisoners, he pretended like they were his friends, and he took walks in the forest with them.
Right.
And they wouldn't even know that they were getting interrogated.
Right. Exactly.
So, do you remember a situation with a prisoner, like who was like a really bad guy?
The dealings that I had with them were to transport them.
Yeah.
So I just had to just take them, and there was only a driver. The only soldiers were a driver and maybe 2 soldiers. That had the whole, like a whole van full of people, of bad guys. So you just had to, like I said, you couldn't let them punk you out because they had the numbers, but you had the guns, and you were in charge, and you just couldn't let them punk you out. Couldn't let them control the situation. You had to control the situation. And surprisingly, humor does that too. If you can get them laughing, you can control it. I did that a number of times.
How did you get them to laugh?
Just acting goofy and like picking on one of them. Like, usually there was, in a funny way, picking on them in a funny way.
For example?
Like if we went to the wrong place and I told, they knew that we weren't at the right place, compound, whatever we were taking them to, and then get back on, I said, this guy, pointing to one of the prisoners, he's the guy that made us stop here. It wasn't me. I didn't do that. Just something goofy like that that people would laugh at. And they had the translators, so they knew they would translate for everybody.
So they were like,
Jackson, I have to interrupt. It's about 3 o'clock. You're going to be going to Floyd's.
oh yeah, right.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Dang, that was a long interview.
Yeah, I think
Awesome,
got all
man.
that for you.
Yeah.
Is it? So is the video?